It's a post-game Sunday edition of 49ers Now, brought to you by Toyota. The very smiley and dog-accompanied Matt Maiocco. The always happy, sparkly professional Jennifer Lee Chan. I am Carlos Ramirez, dogless today. I don't have a dog with me today. We should really consider, Jennifer, having a behind-the-scenes cut of 49ers Now so fans can hear and see what the shenanigans that happen behind the scenes. What do you think?
Oh, everybody always likes that, to know what's going on. How the sausage is made. Everybody wants to know, right?
Nobody wants to know how the sausage is made. Nobody.
When I was like 7 or 8 years old, I went to an elementary school road trip, and it was to one of these factories that makes sausages. Yeah, no one wants to know that. It's not fun.
Well, unless you have plans to become vegan, then you do want to know.
Exactly. All right, let's cut it out. Let's begin with Kyle Shanahan. Updates from today's press conference from the 49ers head coach. Take a listen.
All right, guys, injuries from yesterday. Sam O with an ankle, he'll be day-to-day. Jordan Elliott, ankle, day-to-day. D. Winters, knee, day-to-day. Alfred Collins, shoulder, day-to-day. And Mac Jones, knee contusion, day-to-day.
Kyle, are you any closer to getting Ricky Pearsall back on the field?
I hope so. I bet I'm sure he's doing better this week than last week, but still haven't been told that he'll for sure be back. We'll have to evaluate that when we get to Wednesday.
And same thing for Brock. How is he doing? Do you expect him, or is it a long shot for him to play in New York?
I think it's too early to say. I don't think it's a long shot, but I know he's doing better. And we'll see how he's doing Wednesday. Hopefully, if he's doing good, he'll get in some reps.
Kyle, before you left on Friday, you'd said that there was a chance that Brandon would have the window open. Was there just a feeling that he's just not ready yet, or what kind of feedback have you gotten about that?
No, I think it's week to week from here on out that he's got a chance. I think it would have surprised me if it was this week, but that was just me saying that. Every week I think he's getting closer to having a chance, just not this week.
Are both Jake Brendel and Bryce Huff likely to be out this week again?
Yes. I'm not guaranteeing it yet, but pretty unlikely.
All right, Jennifer, you went back and did some injury mathematics for the fans here, and you found a season that, even though unlikely, it was worse than this. Even though this seems like everything is falling to pieces every single game, 2 or 3 players go out, you did find a season where the 49ers, in your opinion, dealt with more and even more severe injuries, didn't you?
Yeah, 2020, I think, is still the benchmark for the worst injury-plagued season for the 49ers. Let me just give you a quick list of the guys who are injured 11-2, which is about the same time frame, right? Week 8-ish for the 49ers. It was Jimmy Garoppolo, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Jeff Wilson, Weston Richburg, Ben Garland, Jordan Reed. Those are all the starters. There were still more that weren't necessarily starters. Juwan Jennings on the practice squad, and he was injured at the time. On the defensive side, Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, Dee Ford, Mark Nazacha, Richard Sherman, Jaquaski Tart, Ronald Blair, who's now a defensive line coach, Julian Taylor, and Ezekiel Ansah. So all of those players were out for week 8 or week 9.
Matt, can they withstand this new 2025 version of the injury plague going into next Sunday against a team that is also dealing with their own version of the injury plague now, with Cam Scadaboo being out for the season?
Yeah, they can. They have to play better football than they did Sunday against the Houston Texans. I think that you and I watching the game made the clear and logical leap that because of all those backup players out there, that's why the 49ers played so poorly. That's why they weren't able to generate a pass rush. That's why they weren't able to cover on the back end. That's why the offense stalled. I think inside the building, though, the 49ers believe that they have the answers. And it wasn't that they were turning to all these backups. It was because the guys who were on the field didn't play as well as they could have and should have.
Right.
And maybe the coaching staff didn't put them in the right positions. Maybe they didn't teach the lessons properly on how they were going to handle certain situations, whatever the fact may be. If the players on the field had played anywhere close to what they thought they could play at heading into the game and what they're capable of, it's not an 11-point loss. And so they're not going to be facing a better team this week when they go play the Giants. Giants, they're dangerous, I guess, but I mean, they have their own injury issues. You know, their best receiver, one of the best young receivers in the game, isn't out there. One of the best young running backs in the game isn't out there. So 49ers have the players. The 49ers finished last place in the NFC West last year, and they're playing the Giants because the Giants finished last place in the NFC East last year. And right now, the 49ers are closer to the top of their division than the Giants are to theirs. So it is definitely a winnable game for the Niners heading into Week 9.
I think one of the biggest frustrations that this team has right now, and you have to deal with it because every team is pretty much, is not being able to see the totality of the potential of your offense because Brock's played 2 games. One of them was hurt. The other one he got hurt in. Ricky's now hurt. Ayuk hasn't played. So take a listen to what George said about wanting to play with those guys at some point.
I mean, I love playing football with Ricky because he's like KB and he's just so full of energy and so full of love of the game. So that's a guy like I love playing with. I mean, I think I've said 1,000 nice things about Brock. You guys know exactly how I feel about him. So, he's the best operator of our offense that I've ever seen. So, yeah, I mean, and then Ayuk is, we paid him $30 million for a reason because that's how good he is. And so, yeah, you can daydream and think about that stuff, and I can't wait to start playing with those guys again. But, currently, we're playing with what we got, and I think what we got is enough to win football games, especially, today. But when you operate the way that we did in those first 3-4 drives, which is just honestly really, really bad is what I would say, from MAs to procedure penalties to holdings, whatever they were. I mean, we just played bad football on offense today.
All right, Jennifer, I'll go to you first. Are the 49ers getting a point where they can't wait anymore? What I mean by that is the Giants are up next, and then it's the Rams. They are now third in the NFC West, and even though there's still a lot of football to be played, those margins are getting thinner and thinner. Do they need those players on offense to be back ASAP for them to be at least dreaming about contending for something?
I mean, I think anytime you have guys like Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall on the field, they're a better team. But like George said, he thinks they have enough to win. And I think, when you look at how Kyle Shanahan's offense is timing based, if a wide receiver is off on the block, if he's off on a protection, it throws the whole thing off. Guys, if they aren't getting open, that changes where Mac Jones can go with the ball. So it is missed assignments. I think we don't know the exact play call and who's supposed to hit who where, but oftentimes if a tight end is supposed to chip or if a wide receiver is supposed to chip or they're supposed to open up a lane for a run, that's how Kyle Shanahan's offense is successful. If those things don't happen because someone's not lined up in the right spot or because they get moved back 5 yards because of a face mask penalty or whatever it is, they're not playing clean football right now. So beyond everything, they need to just not have as many mistakes.
Carlos, the team is 5-3. And I think if you're being realistic, if you see how the 49ers got to 5-3, you would take that any season with the amount of injuries they've had. Now, It is just the nature of the NFL that teams are up and down. I mean, think about the 49ers last, 5 games. It's a horrible game against Jacksonville, followed by a great game against the Rams, followed by a disheartening game against Tampa Bay in which Fred Warner gets injured and they lose the game. And then they come right back and they face the Falcons and look good again. And then it's another bad game against Houston. So it's just up and down.
So are you saying they're going to win against the Giants? Up and down, up and down.
If they continue this pattern, and I think they are favored in this game. But then you look at, just for perspective, look at the entire NFC. And, if the goal is for the 49ers to make the playoffs, which it is, you fast forward to early January, and if you make the playoffs, who knows what kind of shape your team's going to be in. Right. Maybe it'll be in better shape for the 49ers a couple months down the road than it is right now. And then you don't know how the other team's going to look. I mean, the Detroit Lions last year were the number 1 seed, and they were leaking oil at the finish line because of all their injuries, and they lose in their first game. But just look at the teams behind the 49ers right now in the NFC playoff race. And again, we got a lot of football to play, but the Chicago Bears, 49ers will play them later this season. Carolina Panthers, 49ers will play them later this season. That's amazing right there that the Panthers are in the playoff mix and at 500. Those are the only other teams. Those are the only teams outside the playoff hunt right now, outside of the top 7 teams in the NFC that have at 500 or above 500 records. So it's very much in play for the 49ers to see this season through and see what they can do, and perhaps, maybe likely, getting into the playoffs.
Just quick answer before we go to Demo the North Sound. Matt, you first. What offensive player do you think the 49ers need more to be back on the field? If you could just pick one.
Ricky Pearsall.
Jen?
Brock Purdy.
All right. Let's go to
I forgot about him.
What?
The reason I said Pearsall is because he gives them something that they don't have right now. They don't have a guy who can beat man coverage at the snap of the ball. But I mean, obviously, Jennifer wins. That was a better answer.
Yeah, she wins. Yeah. Flag on the play for Matt Maiocco. Forgot about Brock.